Holy shit, y'all. So, first off, hello, hello. I hope you're having a lovely start to your week. Um, as many of you may be thinking, since I said in my couple episodes ago that today was going to be the day that I was going to drop the episode all about the Stay or Go community. I found myself, as I was writing that episode, just having this other episode that needed to come through before it. So I keep having to relearn this lesson of like, do not tell people what's going to happen in the future when it comes to me and when I'm going to drop things or when things are going to open. Because, and I actually feel so lovely being able to own this. Like, you all know me, right? I am this wild, kind of go with the flow creature. I mean, the last few years of my life have definitely been big on embracing that, on learning to create in my business with flow rather than from a mind-centric, like, here's how things need to go kind of thing. So I just have to chuckle. I just have to chuckle at how this is how it goes. I think something's going to happen one way. And then when I get into that space, it's like, oh my God, there's something else that needs to come through. And I love this other piece that I get to share with you guys today. I was trying to think before I dive in, kind of like, what is this? What am I wanting to share with y'all? A lot of what I want to talk about is where I'm headed with the Stay or Go community, with my work in the world, and how that impacts all of you, to share my vision for the world I want to create, and to ask all of you to keep coming along with me, and to not only do that, but to engage even deeper. At first, it was like, oh my God, why would I want to talk about this? But what's really prompted a ton of this is in the last month, I've received so many reflections of love and my power, my influence, being really shared back with me. And I've been taking it in as it's been coming. But recently it kind of reached a point where I was like, ooh, what is really happening here? I'm hearing so many of you on those 90-minute sessions. It's just like a regular thing where I'll get on and it feels like we already know each other. And hearing how much the podcast has meant to so many of you, it made me start going, okay, whoa, wait a second. There's something really big happening here. I've always had a feeling in me of where I was going to take all of this. But as many of you know, so much of my journey over the past 4 or 5 years has been serious trauma healing and just having to build a foundation in myself first, which, as I want to talk about in this podcast, is what makes me the incredible coach that I am. And I'm like finally so ready and proud to say that. And I think that's what's been so big for me lately, is finally moving in like my nervous system. I'm expanding into seeing who I am. So much work that is now all of a sudden like, oh, wow, look at what's been created. And why that is so inspiring to me is because this is the exact journey I want for each of you. I've fallen in love with this book that the universe totally synchronistically brought to me over Thanksgiving break. It's called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And you guys, this is not my normal reading material. I typically stay away from business stuff. I really have honed so much of my voice and my message through not listening to other people's opinions over the last few years and just going my route. And that route was purely trusting my intuition. What calls to me next? What do I want to do? But through a very, very crazy, like thinking of something unrelated, looking back into an old podcast episode I'd heard somewhere, that woman's email list somehow, like really freaking magically, guys, I must have been on it because I've never received an email from her and all of a sudden it shows up in my inbox and she mentions this book. I'll give it a try. Start reading it and I'm like, fuck, this is what I've been doing with my life. This is what I am teaching the women that I coach. I am teaching them how to choose to live a life not based on fear. And in fact, the other day I re-listened to my podcast intro, and that's that part where I'm like, so that no woman ever stays in her marriage out of fear. We're changing the dialogue of divorce for that specific reason. It was just waves and waves of deepening understanding of my own journey and how walking that path, the path of trusting my intuition, trusting my soul calls over everything else, of learning how to identify what that is like in my body, learning how to come back to really identify what it feels like, and then to have the bravery to follow it, which a huge piece of that is all of the thought work, all of the coaching, all of the belief retraining, and then absolutely all of the trauma work, releasing the stored patterns, the stored pain in my body from those things that when I want to do something that's calling to me, for so many of us, your trauma is what shuts you down. It's what makes you small again. It's your programming. It's the cultural things that tell you, no, you can't do that. Don't get too big for your britches, right? And so I was like, oh my God, in following my soul call, right? I knew when I got divorced, I had this feeling that if I didn't make this step, yes, things were probably going to in some ways be okay. I would get through it. I would live a life, but there was going to be something huge, some purpose I was meant to have in this life that would just not happen. And that purpose called so deeply to me that I made the leap. And over the last 5 years, I have continued to make the leaps over and over again. And that was where I caught the biggest vision for what I'm doing here with you all. Is we're not just talking about making this decision like, am I going to stay married or am I going to get divorced? It is so much deeper than that. It is really a question of, am I going to live a life that is led and guided by my soul? Or am I going to live a life that is dictated by scarcity and fear, and ultimately always settling for what do I need rather than what do I most want? So in this book, he talks about the really important thing when you're going to, if you want to take your life, your business to that next level, if you want to lean into that soul call, what it's going to require from you is letting go of the 80% of your life that you're comfortable with, that's okay, so, and really going in on the 20% that just fucking lights you up. And this is why I say often on the podcast to you guys, this is not for everyone. What I'm passionate about isn't just making this decision. It's a way of living. It's a way of interacting with your life where you build the resources, the strength, the capacity within yourself, the connection with your nervous system, the healing with your inner child, to be able to come up against the moments in your life where you have an opportunity to really go for what you want and to have the tools in your body to actually make those jumps over and over and over again for the rest of your life, so that when you get to the end of your life, when you are on that deathbed, you look back and it's like, holy shit, I lived. Like I don't know if I've ever understood before just how this is really the driving force underneath all of the work that I am doing that, yes, has this gorgeous focus of making this big decision, but that ultimately is not just about this decision. It's about an entire way of life for you going forward. And God, my whole body lights up at this idea because this is in my opinion, the best way to do divorce well. If you are getting divorced, if you end up deciding to do that, you want to be ready to go all in on your life, to really show up, to manage your mind. This is making me think this week, one of my clients over Thanksgiving break, she went down and saw her sister, and her sister is married to a guy who is divorced. And my client is at the moment separating from her husband. And so she was sharing with her family that that's what was happening. And long story short, her sister definitely kind of married someone that I'm like, ooh, that doesn't look like the healthiest relationship. But she told my client her ex-husband's ex-wife had happened to reach out to him that week. It's probably been like a year or two since they had divorced. Basically reached out to him saying something like, I'm not happy with how I handled things in the divorce, and kind of like intimating maybe some regret around the decisions she made. And of course, my gorgeous client, her brain a little bit went like, oh my God, wait, does that mean I'm going to regret like what I'm choosing? Right? Which is kind of what I think her sister was intimating. You don't share a story about somebody else regretting their decision around divorce to somebody who says they're considering it without kind of, that's the implied thing. And I came back so strong. I was like, yeah, you know why that woman probably regrets her divorce? Because she didn't have the tools she needed to really support and help herself after. And you guys know that. I am not like, oh my God, make the decision and everything's going to be great. That's why I'm so passionate about the work that I do, because I understand you have to have a really gorgeous, hardcore, have your back mindset to get divorced and to thrive and really remake your life afterwards. And so I'm not surprised that divorce gets a really bad rap because we have, first off, in the stigma of it, we have undercreated resources to support people going through it. You can't talk about it. It's hidden. It's secretive. It's shameful to even mention that you're thinking about it. When you do, the people that are going to talk to you about it, I mean, are they actually, helping you learn how to think through your thoughts, to process your emotions? No, it's a total shit show. And then if you do manage to make the leap, where's the support and the community, the safety net that's there to fuel you into that next expansion? It just doesn't exist. Not yet. But it will, and it is. So I need to caveat, it's not that it doesn't exist, not yet. It's that it does. It has just barely begun. And I know there's other areas. Obviously, there are other coaches out there coaching about this, but I do feel in this last month, what I was catching was this like, holy shit, I have something really, really unique and different to offer the world. And really catching a bigger vision of, as I've said before, like I really want to change the dialogue around divorce. And along with that, completely change the way we go through it. And a huge piece of that is not being a coach that is specifically like, I'm not just a divorce coach. I am a considering divorce coach. And why is because there is so much potential for growth in that space. And you guys know this, right? So as I was reading this book, the 10X is easier than 2X. And as I was catching this vision of like, you can't just make the decision. You have to have this mindset. I mean, you can, right? I don't recommend it. You guys know, I'm like, give me some time with you beforehand, right? Let's go deep. Let's find these parts of you. Let's get you a foundation. Let's get you the beliefs and the vision of what you want most that's going to call you forward. And then let's make that move. In dropping in with my partner this year and really getting to learn more about secure attachment relationship with him. We're coming up on almost a year. Oh my God, you guys, in January. And I've noticed this also side of me that is getting very interested in like, okay, how do we do relationship well, right? Like, how do we for the marriages where there is a shot, where in this considering divorce space, in you dropping in deeper and you really being honest and in talking honestly between each other that like, this is where we are. What are the resources there, right? To help couples go deeply into their own growth and then through that personal growth, be able to find each other again and potentially create something new. So as you guys can see, the vision has expanded for me into this future that I see with such a bigger impact than where I'm at the moment. And to do that, which is what this whole episode is kind of leading to and what I'm wanting to share with you all, is in having to let go of that 80% and focus on the 20% in this last couple weeks as I've been digesting and really having to think like, what is it that's making the greatest impact? What is it that I'm hearing back from you is like really making waves and setting off shifts for y'all? It comes down to the podcast, which like friggin' blows my mind, y'all. When I started this podcast at the beginning of this year, I had, I knew I had things to say. I knew I was really passionate about getting these ideas out. I had no idea that I just couldn't even have imagined how much it was going to resonate and really impact those of you listening. So one of the areas that I'm like, absolutely, I want to devote more of my energy and attention to is going to be the podcast. Like 2025. If you thought what had already come this year on the podcast was amazing, I cannot wait to get to share what I'm going to be creating in the upcoming year. Along with that, like I'm feeling very called to a lot more collaborating. Like y'all, with the age of Aquarius, with Pluto moving out of Capricorn, which by the way, I have so many placements in Capricorn. So literally the last, 13 to 15 years where I was in Capricorn was brutal. With this shift, I have been like, oh my God, this is the age of collaboration. This is the age of community. This is the age of, we're not just doing this alone anymore. We're doing it together. And I felt so called to that. This whole year, I've been meeting women. I've been meeting people that I'm like, I want to have you in the community. I want to do a podcast episode with you. So there's that whole space as well, right? Like bringing so many other resources as well to you guys. And the other area that felt the most like resonant for me in that 20% is the community. And y'all, this was a shock for me that this would be such a rapid shift. As you know, I only dropped to the community a couple months ago. And the framework I had for what that was going to be was that, the majority of my business, my income would continue to be focused around my one-on-one coaching, and that the community would be this beautiful option for those who couldn't afford to one-on-one coach with me. But through the experience and the journey of launching the community, and especially as you guys heard in the podcast episode last week with Stephanie, when I interviewed her, hearing how hard it was for her to be so close with me when we coached one-on-one, and then when that ended, to just be on her own, having to do that work completely once again by herself. Like, yes, she had a lot of tools, and obviously, thank God the tools that we had done together, like she held on to those and made over that next 2 years the shift she needed to make the big decision, right? Like, God, Stephanie, I fucking love you. So fucking proud. But I felt in that moment like a responsibility, like, oh, wow, yes, it's amazing to get to coach people one-on-one. And I am such a powerhouse coach for my one-on-one clients. And also it was catching this bigger vision of, yes, I can do it. And in watching the power that the community has had on the women in it in the last 2 months, I've been like, oh shit, this is where it's really at. This is the space that's going to create that multiplier effect that I just can't do as one person working one-on-one with someone, right? Like, and it's so like in so many ways, so expansive and like, I can't even say full circle because I'm not even coming back to it. But I remember having maybe a year or two, a astrology reading from a woman where as she was looking at my chart, she was like, yeah, no, I'm thinking it was an astrology reading. And then it was also like a human design one, like 3 or 4 years ago, where both of these women were like, your chart, like, what are you doing for work? And I would tell them, and they would like, it needs to be bigger. It needs to be, you need to think bigger. You need to think groups. You need to think bigger spaces. And at the time, I was so exhausted, right? From my own work. I was still building that internal foundation, which, you know, huge snaps for me. I'm so proud that I took the time to do that, that it just felt like a faraway dream. Like, nah, I'm good. Well, y'all, this year it came through. And especially towards the end of the year being like, oh, I see it. I see the vision, the movement I want to create and that I want y'all to be a part of. And you already are, like, that's the beautiful thing. But I also want you all to catch this vision, this momentum with me as we move into this next year, as we move into this next evolution of me and my business. I really wanted to take the time to acknowledge these underlying pieces, to like get to also share with you guys what this looks like kind of behind the scenes, because this is the framework. This is the life, the way of living life that I am ultimately, I realized, teaching, which is being very, very drawn and guided by your soul calls. And, you know, in the book, coming back, when he talked about what is your unique ability, as I dove deeper into it, I was like, oh my God, my gift is being able to ignite people's soul calls. That's what you all keep telling me when you get on these intensives. You're like, I found your podcast, binge listen to everything, and I need to talk to you. Right? And so in knowing that, okay, part of my gift is igniting people's soul's calls, I also realized the other gift that I have is the wealth of knowledge and experience I have in my own life and then in guiding other women through overcoming the fear, because the fear is the biggest block on living a life that is truly big and bold and something that you want, and going for things that actually light you up rather than settling and contenting yourself with, well, what do I really need, or what's not asking too much. So as I was saying, the 20% that I'm going to be focusing on moving forward is going to be the podcast and then the community. And excitingly, as I had said, you know, I'm going to be doing an episode. It's not going to happen this week because this one's happening this week, but next week will be the episode where I get to really dive deep into the ins and outs of the community, really flesh out for y'all what that process looks like applying to be in the community. I'm super excited in that episode to go more deeply into why I think the community is so special and huge for the changes I want to see in the world, which really come back to what I was saying earlier of making divorce, making the process, the experience that so many of us just, you know, it's not like we picked to end up in the space of considering divorce. I didn't go into my marriage thinking that's what was going to happen. I didn't, throughout my marriage, make strategic choices that I was like, yeah, this is probably going to lead us to divorce. I really woke up one day and was just like, holy shit, where did we go off the rails? I am so lost. I am so confused. I am so desperate. I am so lonely. I am so drained. I am so empty. What happened? You know, I was told do all these things and they would make me happy. And I did all the things and I'm not there. And to change that experience of then having to do it all in isolation, having to do it hidden behind closed doors, you know, maybe if you're lucky with a therapist, maybe with a best friend. But as you guys know from Stephanie's interview last week, she literally had no one else in her life but me saying, you can trust yourself. I believe in you. We're going to follow your soul calls. And I truly believe that when we change this stereotype around considering divorce, when we open this space to more authenticity, more vulnerability, which is exactly what I'm seeing happening in the community, right? That I think that's one of the most unique things about the community is that it is not just a anonymous virtual space. We are actually on live coaching calls with women who are experiencing really profound. I'm thinking of a coaching call we did last week that was the most it was a level of coaching from myself. It was a level of vulnerability from the women in the community that I was like, "Oh my God, this is incredible what we are creating together." And the impact is multiplied exponentially, because where previously that would have been just me and a one-on-one client and nobody else gets to see that in the community. That call is recorded. That call is then watched by other people in the community. That call was witnessed by, you know, other women on the call. And that ripples out. It ripples out massively. And not just like it energetically, it emotionally, but also I've seen women in the community within the last month, at least 2 to 3 women have found the bravery, the courage to go have the discussion of like, I want a divorce, and be supported in that, to not then collapse back in and go back out of things got bad or this is tough. It's so hard to have vulnerable conversations. Y'all, like in the last 4 or 5 days with my partner, and this is just why I'm like, these are skills that you're going to need everywhere, y'all. It's not just in a marriage that you're considering leaving. It's like, if you ever want to have partnership in the future, learning to be vulnerable, authentic, real. I had a couple conversations with Joe that going into them, I could feel my body being like, I do not want to do this. This is so uncomfortable. I feel so unsure. I don't really know exactly what I want to say here, exactly how I'm feeling, but I've built up enough of that ability to know that that's what's calling me forward, is that edge that's like, there's something more here. And yes, I could just stay where I'm at. Yes. I mean, nobody needs to live big, bold, vibrant lives. You can totally live lives that are average. And I don't say that like a negative. You guys know this. Everybody gets to live at the level they want to live. And it's not that some levels are better than others. But it is that when you want to live at a high level and you don't have the tools to do that, you don't have the tools to trust yourself or to feel connected to your body, and you are just running in circles, draining yourself on the treadmill, on the merry-go-round of re-traumatizing each other in your marriage. It's for those women that I do this work. It's for you, those of you listening. Coming back to the like heart of it, I did it for myself first, right? For the individual me that was like, I know there's something more out there. I know there is something calling me. And in learning how to follow that over and fucking over and fucking over, look where I am now. Like this moment of, oh my God, I now have women, reaching out to me saying Thank you for seeing me. This is exactly what I needed to hear. And to take that to the next level, I want to focus in the future more on, like I said, the podcast and on the community. So some key pieces that I feel like I want to make sure that you guys are aware of and that I really want to call in as well going forward is specifically around my one-on-one coaching. I have realized, as much as it, it's my 80%. It's what I've done for over 4 years now. It's what I'm incredibly good at. To make this shift, I have to shift away from that taking the majority of time. And to do that, I have to get really specific about the one-on-one clients that I do take on, and I have to take on less of them, and I have to take them at a greater price. And actually that feels really yummy to do that and to acknowledge that, because I want to make this shift not only, for all of you, for what I'm going to put out in the world as well, but I want to make it in a way that is really supportive also for me and my children. Like, that's like the also like gorgeously synergistic piece of this whole thing. And what I'm kind of like wanting to put out there into the universe through this podcast is the acknowledgement of what a gorgeous value exchange this is in my business. As I get paid to coach my women, my children, which are children of divorce, children being raised by a single mom, they get to thrive. They get to have a different future. They get to pass on a different lineage in the future. And ultimately, I hate projecting out into the future at all, but my dream, I can feel hopefully one day, maybe sooner rather than later, is to have a company where I also get to employ other female coaches, other women who have made those leaps in their lives. And it becomes this huge, gorgeous ripple effect. But to make that happen, I have to also make the big jumps for myself, right? And one of those is changing my focus in my one-on-one coaching clients and also letting you guys know what that is. I'm only in the future going to be accepting probably a maximum of 5 one-on-one coaching clients. Once again, what I learned from that experience with Stephanie was when you coach with me one-on-one, it is really intense. Not only am I helping you make that decision, I am helping you change deep childhood patterns. I am helping you connect in with your inner child. I am helping you work through trauma. I am helping you. We're really building that foundation of learning how to make the jumps in not only this decision, but what I want for you going forward. And I've seen that the women who benefit most from that intense of an approach are women who have done a lot of their work already. So you've either been in therapy before, or you've done coaching, or you already have a lot of self-awareness, but you are missing that igniting piece, that person who can see the shit fast and help you make the connections. The other key piece about this is that I'm looking for women who are financially stable on their own. This is one of the biggest areas that I have struggled in my business, is the reality that divorce, for so many of us, just like me in my marriage, money is controlled by your spouse. It was controlled by my husband. But going forward, I'm looking for clients. It is not a question. It is like, yes, I know how to invest in myself, and I am looking for a very high level coach to take me into this next evolution and really get me into the decision and moving forward. So that is the piece with the one-on-one coaching. And I needed to make that clear because I have in the past talked about coaching with me, and you'll see on my website what the investment is for that. And I am putting this out into the universe in this moment to call in those women, because what I've learned through reading this book and understanding the jump I need to make, I have to shift resources, right? I have to have more time to be putting to the podcast. I mean, you guys know right now with the podcast, there are sometimes weeks that it just doesn't happen because it hasn't been the number one priority for me. I fucking love and adore it, and I'm obsessed with it. Every time I get on to do a podcast, I'm like, this is fire. But it's the whole chasing what I need versus really believing and going for what I want. So many areas of my life, everything is just right where I want it and what I want. Like, holy shit, what I want. Time, work that I'm passionate about, a partner that is insanely sexy and amazing, renovating what I think about myself as a mom and interacting with my children different. And this piece that I'm ready to move into and that I want even more of is the money piece. And to do that, I have to move out of a scarcity. What do I need? What's working right now? Right? And make that leap. And then also, the reason I'm shifting that is so that income can be created there that then is able to support me having more time and space to dedicate into the podcast and into the community, because long term, the community is really the heart and soul of what I see going forward. And, not only the community, I think long term, I'm like, don't hold me to any of this, y'all, as far as like, did she actually end up doing these things? Because the universe will show me the way forward. But potentially writing a book in the future, having retreats. My women in the community have been like, we want to be in person with each other. And I get it. It is amazing when you meet these women and you get to be so open with each other. I've gotten really spoiled because that's just what my life has been like over the last few years, probably the last 5, getting to be that way with all of you. But for many of the women in the community, this is like the first time that they've really had women around them that they can be this open and honest with. So of course y'all want to go hang out together. And of course I would be absolutely obsessed to do that, to get to have retreats that are planned throughout the year where we get to be in person. There's just something really magical that happens when that energy gets to be shared face to face, with energy exchanges happening. We do so much through screens, which is incredible, but I really want that as well. So to also fuel and facilitate that, another thing that I'm going to be changing is the prices on my 90-minute intensives. And I will tell you, this has been coming for a while because as I've really dived into those intensives and the incredible PDF that I send afterwards and the audio, I've realized, I've got these really underpriced for the amount of value I am giving, because it is just such a huge, this is just another area of like, same thing with the community. I just didn't know what this was when I created it. And now that I do, I'm like, holy shit, this is not just an intensive, but you get a roadmap and a whole bunch of resources that you're going to be using going forward. And I know it creates massive shifts for women because they've reached back out to me and been like, after the intensive with you, I was just like so ready to go. So I wanted to give you all a heads up on that as well, because I know many of you may be thinking about doing intensives with me and maybe might have been on the fence. And I am super drawn to them right now at the moment and still absolutely keeping them. But I know the price is going to be increasing even further. So they have increased as of this episode. I project where they will probably land in the future will be more like around $600 to do one with me. So they're not there at the moment, but that's where I see energetically that feels like the right fit for what you're receiving out of that 90 minutes with me. And I just feel really proud, feeling my body energetically shifting to acknowledge my own value, which I hope so many of you are also seeing this kind of in like I don't know if the right word's like meta, but through me being so vulnerable and open about my own journey and what it's like to evolve, to grow, to expand into the next biggest version of yourself. This is what it looks like, right? It looks like having to let go, knowing, okay, like I really am just going off of this is intimately, deeply where I feel called the most next. So I wanted to encourage that for those of you that have been called to that maybe in the future, that won't be a price point that you can invest in. I want you to have the opportunity now, right? This was also the thing. I had to process a lot of my own emotions around how I deeply love working with so many of you in these one-on-one situations, and also having to let go of something so beautiful for something that I really do feel is even more beautiful. Right? Which is the impact of this not only being what I'm doing right now, but like rippling out in really big ways in the world, really growing and expanding the impact of the podcast, really opening the doors fully to the community, right? I've been so careful with this community, building it here at the beginning, really allowing it to marinate with the founding members, to really allow them to create cohesion, to really see and learn what is working best there, that to now, really open the doors and start bringing in so many of you, right? That like maybe, one-on-one coaching isn't a fit and the 90-minute isn't even a fit, but the community is going to be where it's at. And when I think about that, I just feel like, oh yeah, that's where it's at. It's not going to come from me. It's going to come from all of you, from the vision that we share and that we create together. And that's a big piece of why I wanted to do this episode too, was I didn't feel like I could really just drop the episode about the community without y'all knowing and feeling like what's going on right here behind the scenes in my body, in my soul, in relation to this work. And to really be like, I want all of you with me on this journey. And you are. And thank you for being there. It's because so many of you have reached out to me. I can't even tell you, like, oh God. Like I hardly ever ask on the podcast for reviews, right? For you guys to go leave Apple reviews. And yet I happened to check the podcast randomly a month or two ago. And I was like, oh my God, to just read the comments, to hear so many of you that I've never even met, right? Your gratitude, you all have helped me catch the vision of who I am and who I am becoming, and how valuable that is in the world. And that is the power of community. That is the power of having women who can reflect back your own brilliance to you. That is the power of not just going it alone, having to do it on your own, being isolated, right? That is the power of building bigger systems than just what I did beautifully, right? The one-on-one coaching, I am so proud of that. And like I said, I'm not fully ready to let go of all of it, but I am catching the vision of what is coming. And what is coming is so incredibly beautiful. And I wanted to share that vision with you all. I wanted to get to really say thank you for reaching out, taking the time to tell me what this was meaning to y'all, taking the time to be brave yourselves. Even in listening to the podcast, you are being brave. You are acknowledging that you want more. And that really is the heart of what I want most for so many women in this space, is being able to acknowledge what they want, being able to want more, and have a community, have a voice in that space that gets to be heard, that gets to be seen. Your journey is important. You get to be witnessed and supported and celebrated as you go through it. It doesn't have to be what me and, so many other women who, weren't connected to this space have had to do, which is just, really finding it in yourself and finding it with like maybe one other person to support you. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. And that is what I want to change going forward. I hope you all have felt my just deep gratitude, excitement, awe for what has been. Right? Many of you that have been on this journey with me up until this point. So many of you that have just come on this year, and all the many that will come in the future. And just a lot of awe at where I really do believe we are headed as women in the world. You know, as you guys know from my episode around the election, I was really discouraged, feeling very afraid of where the world was headed. And what I have seen since then is so many incredible people stepping up and saying, this is not my future. Like, the world will be different. We will find a way. And I am so excited to be in a position to really, because of the work that I've done leading up to this point, to be a thought leader in that space, to be a voice for change, to be really on the edge, you know, the cutting edge, pushing forward the new ideas of what I want the world to look like, how I want us to interact with divorce, and the resources and the ways we support those of us in the process of considering divorce. And I'm going to dive more into that next week in the community episode, really kind of outlining more deeply what my big vision is for that community. And, you know, so that those of you that are considering it really know what you're signing up for here. So thank you all for listening. I'm so immensely grateful that I have this platform, this space to show up, be all of me, and to be supported and loved and seen by all of you. And then, as you know, it's this beautiful reciprocal process. As you do that, I then pour even more out into the world and into you. And I think that's the beauty of mutuality, reciprocity, true community. And that's what we're going to continue building together. All right, next week, y'all. Till then.